My daughter-in-law laughed, saying that I looked like a servant in my own garden, glass in hand. I was wearing my blouse from the night my husband proposed, and my son pretended not to hear anything. So I smiled, left quietly, and 2 weeks later, I sold the house they lived in, something they will never forget. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the rest of this stunning story. My daughter-in-law laughed, cocktail in hand, and said I looked like her housekeeper, right in my own backyard. I was wearing the same blouse from the night my husband proposed, and my son just stood there, acting like he didn't hear. So, I smiled, walked out quietly, and 2 weeks later, I sold the house they lived in and did something they'll never forget. Before we start, please like and subscribe, and share in the comments. What's one life lesson everyone should hear before it's too late? Thanks. I hadn't planned to attend that weekend party. Not after how Emily had been acting for months. Snide remarks, eye rolls when I entered the room, whispering to Michael like I was too old to keep up. But Michael insisted. "Just a few friends, Mom. Nothing big," he said over the phone, his voice tight, like he was hiding something. So, I went. I ironed my favorite blouse, the one Robert gave me for our 30th anniversary, saying it made me look like Grace in sunlight. I added a touch of blush, tied my hair back, and told myself it was just a casual get-together. When I arrived, the backyard was buzzing. String lights, catered food, women in stilettos with cocktails. The crowd Emily loved to impress. I barely set my purse down when her voice cut through the chatter. "Oh my God, doesn't Susan look like Rosa, my old housekeeper from Austin?" She laughed. Not a quiet chuckle, but a loud, showy one, meant to draw others in. And they joined. Laughter spread across the yard like a brush fire. I stood there, holding a glass of red wine someone handed me, my cheeks burning. I looked at Michael across the yard, chatting with a guy in a baseball cap. Our eyes met. He looked away. That hurt worse than the insult, worse than the laughter. My own son pretending he didn't hear. I turned, walked to the guest bathroom, and locked the door. I sat on the closed toilet lid, hands trembling, staring at my reflection in the mirror. My lipstick was smudged. I looked tired. No, exhausted. And I thought, not for the first time, if Robert were alive, this wouldn't be happening. Emily's attitude shifted after he passed. She used to fake kindness, but once he was gone, the mask slipped. I always thought Michael didn't notice, or didn't care. But tonight proved it. He saw and did nothing. I splashed water on my face and waited until the guests moved to the front of the house before slipping out. I tried to leave quietly, but Rosa, our housekeeper, was in the hallway folding napkins. She gave me a look, not pity, but understanding. She didn't speak, just nodded once. That's when something shifted inside me. Not exploded, not broke, just shifted, like a gear clicking into place. I wasn't fully angry yet, but I was awake, painfully aware that this house no longer felt like mine. I'd raised Michael here, cooked every Thanksgiving dinner in that kitchen, brought Robert home after his first heart surgery, and now I was being mocked in my own backyard by a woman who wasn't even around when Michael still had training wheels. On the drive home, I didn't cry. I drove in silence, hands steady on the wheel, streetlights flickering through the windshield like static. I pulled into my driveway, turned off the engine, and sat with the keys in my lap. I thought about all the times I'd defended Emily to my friends. She's just high energy, I'd say. She means well, but now I wondered, how long had I been lying to myself? And more importantly, how long had Michael been lying to me? I didn't know then that Rosa would bring me something that would change everything. Something hidden in a drawer that should have stayed locked. But that came later. That night, all I knew was this. My daughter-in-law looked me in the eye, in front of everyone, and said I looked like her housekeeper. And my son looked away. That's when I stopped fearing a scene, because they'd already started it. I just hadn't decided how I'd finish it. The morning after, I was still in the same clothes. I hadn't slept. I poured black coffee at 6 a.m. and stood in the kitchen, staring at the fridge where Robert's old fishing magnet held up a faded photo of Michael at 12, covered in birthday cake. I kept replaying Emily's voice cutting through the laughter, Michael's eyes dropping. I tortured myself with it, wondering if I'd missed something, if I'd misunderstood. I hadn't. At 8 a.m., Rosa called. "Can I stop by?" she asked, which was odd. She never asked, just showed up, knocking like she had for 15 years. "Of course," I said. 20 minutes later, she was at my door with a small tote bag, looking more serious than ever. She didn't sit. She walked to the counter, opened her bag, and set down a folded manila envelope. "You need to see this," she said quietly. Inside were bank letters, loan paperwork, and something that made my stomach drop. A second mortgage agreement with my name and signature, but it wasn't mine. "I found it in the bottom drawer of Michael's office desk last night," she said. "He left it open when they went out back. I don't know why I looked. Something felt off." I ran my fingers over the signature. It was close, but not mine. Someone had practiced. My mouth went dry. "Why would he do this?" I whispered, though I already knew. "Money. Always money," Rosa said. "I think Emily pushed him. They've been arguing about renovations. She said things like, 'Your mom won't be around much longer anyway.'" Her eyes burned. "Susan, I wasn't going to say anything, but after last night, after what she said in front of everyone..." I nodded, speechless. This wasn't just social mockery. They were planning financially, not just waiting for me to die, but trying to speed it up legally. I felt like I was drowning. "I don't know what to do," I said finally. Rosa stepped closer, voice low. "You do. You just don't want to be the kind of woman who does it. But she's already that kind of woman to you." I blinked fast. It was the first time anyone had said it so plainly. Rosa had always been kind, never picking sides, but now she looked ready to burn the place down for me. I stared at the documents like they were in another language. "Do you think Robert knew?" I asked. He'd always said Michael was smart, but soft. Rosa hesitated. "There's more," she said, pulling a worn envelope from her bag with my husband's handwriting. "Susan, I found this behind a book in the den. I think it was for you." My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of lined paper in Robert's neat, looping handwriting. Not a letter, a warning. "I worry Emily's ambition is getting into Michael's bones. She's not cruel. She's calculated. And I think he's letting her turn him into someone he's not. Susan, if anything happens to me, watch her closely. Don't let charm blind you." I clutched it like a lifeline. He'd seen it before I dared admit it. He'd seen what she was. Now I had proof, legal and emotional. I wasn't crazy or paranoid. They'd made me feel like a burden in my own home while smiling through it. But no more. "You're right," I said to Rosa, voice steadier. "I know what to do, and I'm going to do it." I spent the afternoon pacing my living room, envelope in one hand, cold coffee in the other. Robert's words echoed. Don't let charm blind you. He always saw through people. He'd warned me without saying it directly, which felt cruel at first, like he didn't trust me to hear the truth. But I knew my husband. He wasn't hiding it to protect himself, but to protect me. I hated confrontation, and he knew it. He must have thought I'd read it when I was ready. Well, I was ready now. I went to the hall closet, pulled out the metal lockbox with our will, house deed, and insurance papers, untouched since his funeral. The key was still on my keyring with my library fob. Inside, it smelled of old paper and dust. I grabbed the folder labeled Trust and Will and found it in black and white. Robert left everything to me. Full ownership of the house, control of all accounts, nothing to Michael or Emily while I was alive. I spread the pages on the coffee table and stared. For years, I'd thought Michael was helping me, managing things out of care. Now I saw he'd been inching toward power, one quiet signature at a time. That forged mortgage wasn't just desperate. It was calculated. My chest tightened as I reached for the last envelope in the box, marked private. I opened it, expecting more legal papers, but found a small leather journal, Robert's, where he scribbled at night to sort his brain. The final entries made my stomach churn. Stock market notes, back pain complaints, frustration about Michael quitting his job to work with Emily's brother. Then, Emily wants Michael to accelerate the future. She doesn't say it outright, but I know what she means. They want control. They're waiting for me to die and for Susan to fold. I wish I'd handled the trust differently. I thought giving everything to Susan would protect her, but now I worry it made her a target. I closed the journal, gripping it like a shield. This wasn't paranoia. It was happening. They were coming for my home, the money Robert earned over 4 decades. My piece. I opened my laptop and typed in the name of Robert's attorney, James Whitaker. I hadn't spoken to him in years, but his number was still listed. I dialed, and when his assistant answered, I said calmly, "Tell Mr. Whitaker, this is Susan Bennett. I need a private consultation immediately, no family present." She confirmed for 10 a.m. tomorrow. As I hung up, I felt something I hadn't in months, clarity, not rage or grief. For the first time since Robert passed, I felt him beside me, not just in memory, but in his words, his files, the decisions he'd prepared me for. He knew what Emily was, and that Michael, as much as I loved him, was too weak to stop her. But I could. I would. Not with yelling or arguing, but with facts, paper, and the law, the tools they'd tried to use against me. They were about to learn how much power I had. I didn't sleep that night, but not from sadness, from planning. I laid out every document on the dining table like chess pieces. Robert's will, the house deed, the forged mortgage, his journal, Rosa's envelope. I rehearsed what I'd say to Michael, not to change his mind, but to see his face when the truth hit. The next morning, I dressed with purpose. Slacks, flats, the navy blouse Robert said made me look like I ran the town council. I wanted to look in control. I arrived at their house unannounced just after noon. Emily opened the door in yoga pants and full makeup, clearly annoyed. "Oh, you should have called, Susan," she said, forcing a smile. "Michael's here," I cut her off. "I need to speak to both of you now." My tone must have startled her. She had no snarky comeback. She called Michael, and they sat across from me at the kitchen island like scolded teenagers. I pulled the documents from my bag and laid them out. "This," I said, tapping the forged mortgage, "has my signature, except I didn't sign it." Michael paled. Emily crossed her arms. "You're mistaken," she said too quickly. I looked at Michael. "Tell me I signed this. Look me in the eyes and say it's mine." He opened his mouth, but no words came. "How did you get that?" he finally asked, voice low. "Does it matter?" I said. "You committed fraud. You used my name to take out debt on a home that isn't yours." I slid the deed forward. "I own this house, legally, fully. Your father made sure of that." Emily scoffed. "We've lived here for years. You think you can just kick us out over some paperwork?" Her arrogance was unreal. "It's not some paperwork," I said, calmer than I felt. "It's proof. I'm giving you one chance to come clean. Tell me what else you've done, or I'll press charges." Michael looked like he wanted to vanish, shoulders slumped, eyes darting. "It was just for the remodel," he muttered. "We were going to pay it back." I laughed, short and sharp. "You forged my name. That's not a loan. That's theft." Emily leaned in. "You're being dramatic. It's not like we tried to kill you. You're still alive, aren't you? That did it. I stood. You're right. I'm alive, and I plan to stay that way. As of today, I'm removing Michael as financial power of attorney. I filed with the lawyer this morning. All joint accounts are frozen. The house is listed this week. You'll get formal notice within 2 days. Emily stood, face flushed. You can't do that. You're punishing your own son, your family, for one mistake. No, I said, gathering the papers. I'm correcting my mistake for letting you feel entitled to what was never yours. Michael tried again. Mom, please, can we talk privately? Emily didn't mean it. We got overwhelmed. I looked at him, seeing not the boy I raised, but a man who let his wife humiliate his mother while he stayed silent. I thought of all the times I brought him soup when he was sick, cheered loudest at his soccer games. Now he was begging for privacy after conspiring to steal from me. I'm done with private talks, I said. Secrets are how you two operate. I'm done being quiet, done being polite. You have 30 days. After that, you're out. I walked to the door. Emily hissed. You think you're some hero? You're just a bitter old woman. I turned once, hand on the knob. Better bitter than blind. I stepped into the sun, heart pounding. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like someone's mother or burden. I felt powerful. And I was just getting started. 3 days later, I got no apology, no legal inquiry. Just Emily's scream on my voicemail, bouncing like a tantrum in a glass hall. I played it twice, first for the words, then for her tone, because nothing exposes someone faster than how they act when they lose control. You can't just kick us out. We've built our lives here. Michael's kids grew up in this house. You're destroying your family for pride? You're disgusting. I didn't call back. I saved the recording and emailed it to my attorney. That afternoon, I arrived at the house with a real estate agent, Karen, who looked like she didn't tolerate nonsense and smelled of lavender and ink. As we walked through my rooms, I noticed Emily had left clothes strewn in the guest room, shoes scattered in the hallway, a wine glass on the staircase, staged to make the place look unlivable. I ignored it. Karen took notes, praised the crown molding Robert installed in '92, and we set the listing price. Emily watched from the stairs like a vulture, arms crossed, lips a tight line. You're pathetic, she muttered, loud enough for me to hear. I didn't blink. I signed the paperwork with Karen in the kitchen and scheduled a cleaning crew for the weekend. That's when Emily snapped. She stomped downstairs, grabbed the wine glass, and threw it at the wall near the fridge. It didn't shatter, just bounced and rolled under the table like a bad soap opera. This is our house now! You're not the queen anymore! She shouted. Michael appeared behind her, unshaven, exhausted. Mom, can we just talk? He said weakly, his old pleading voice. I shook my head. You forged my name. You tried to steal my home. There's nothing to talk about. Emily stormed into the living room, yanking open drawers like she wanted something to throw. I'll tell everyone you're senile. You don't even remember things right. I pulled a paper from my bag, my medical evaluation from a private physician done 2 days earlier at James Whitaker's request. Certified mentally competent, I said. Signed and sealed. I knew you'd try that. She froze for a second, then lunged forward, finger pointing, face twisted. This is elder abuse. You're abusing us. I almost laughed. By holding you accountable? I turned to Michael. Your father trusted you. He trusted me. Look what you've done with that trust. He opened his mouth but said nothing. The silence wasn't awkward. It was damning, the sound of a son realizing he'd pushed his mother too far. I walked to the door. The listing goes live in 48 hours. Eviction notice will be served Monday. Start packing. Emily muttered about calling her brother. Lawyers. Public humiliation. I didn't listen. I drove around the block, parked behind the old CVS where Robert and I used to grab sodas after church, and sat with the windows cracked, listening to the wind. I wasn't shaking or crying. I felt solid, like roots had grown under my feet. Power doesn't come from yelling or playing victim. It comes from truth, preparation, and refusing to settle for less. Emily thought I was just an old woman with too many memories and no spine. She didn't know I kept every receipt, every will revision, every voicemail. I'd been quiet, not from fear, but from watching. She'd made herself the enemy of a woman with nothing to lose, a dangerous place to stand. The next morning, I woke before dawn, brewed Earl Grey, and sat with a legal pad to plan what I needed to secure before pulling the final lever. I wasn't just winning. I was ensuring they couldn't claw back. First, the bank. I'd frozen the joint accounts, but now I had them closed entirely, rerouting everything into a trust under my name with an independent fiduciary. I didn't trust anyone tied to Michael anymore. The banker, a young woman named Lauren, raised her eyebrows at the forged mortgage. "Your son did this?" she asked, stunned. I didn't flinch. "My attorney will follow up if the bank doesn't flag the fraud," I said, folding the file precisely. Next, the locks. I'd called a locksmith the day before, but rescheduled for Saturday morning during Emily's planned charity brunch. Her caterer's website showed she'd booked the patio, garden, and a champagne truck for her networking event. She thought I wouldn't act before it. Her first mistake. I confirmed with the sheriff's department that the eviction notice would be hand-delivered Monday and checked with James to ensure every signature was triple verified. No holes for Emily or Michael to exploit. Then I returned to the house alone, notebook in hand, cataloging what was mine, what was left, what they'd ruined. The antique foyer table had scratches from dragged bags. The fireplace mantel was scuffed. The spice rack Robert built was greasy. It didn't hurt. It clarified. They hadn't respected the home, its history, or the hands that built it, treating it like a backdrop for their social media lives. I stood in the master bedroom doorway, seeing my wedding photo on the dresser slightly askew. I straightened it. This room once held warmth. Robert's humming while brushing his teeth, old records on Sunday mornings. Now it was cold, sterile, like an overstayed hotel room. I retrieved the last financial folders from the hallway closet, slipped them into my tote, and removed Michael and Emily's alarm codes entirely. That evening, I met Rosa for dinner at a Mexican spot off Main Street. She wore lipstick and a denim jacket I hadn't seen before. "You look like you just fired the world," she joked. "I might have," I smirked, telling her about the lawyer, bank, locksmith, and brunch. She laughed when I mentioned the locks changing mid-event. "You're cold," she said, sipping a margarita. "No," I replied. "I'm finally warm." She leaned in. "Want me there Saturday?" I paused. "I won't stop you." She smiled. "I'll bring my camera." That night, I drafted a letter to Michael, not to Emily, not to fight, but to explain why I was doing this. I wrote about years of small humiliations, letting his wife chip away at me, hoping he'd notice. I said his forgery broke something permanent. I reminded him of the home we built, the meals we shared, the years I poured into raising him, and ended simply, "I don't need your permission to protect myself. You no longer have mine to use my silence as a weapon." I signed and sealed it. No return address, no begging. I slept hard that night, knowing exactly what came next on my terms. Saturday arrived like a steady drumbeat. I was out the door by 9:00 a.m., in a clean blazer, 2 sale agreements in my bag, and fresh lipstick I hadn't worn since Robert's funeral. I reached the house before the champagne truck, the locksmith waiting at the curb, tools in hand, eyes curious. "Everything that matters is gone," I told him, gesturing to the door. He nodded, professional and silent, and began removing Michael and Emily from my home, one bolt at a time. Guests arrived as we finished, early birds with mimosa vibes and fake smiles. unaware their hostess couldn't even get in. I waited in my car until the crowd grew, watching Emily flit around in a rented floral dress, waving to photographers like she was running for office. Her eyes caught mine across the lawn. I smiled. She didn't. She didn't know yet, but I'd make sure she did, publicly. I stepped out as the champagne truck driver tried the locked door, confused, calling for her. Emily rushed over, heels sinking into the grass, voice shrill. "It's jammed, I swear!" Murmurs rose. I stepped forward, calm as a principal in a noisy classroom. All eyes turned. "It's not jammed," I said, loud enough to cut through the music. "It's been changed." Emily's face froze. "What the hell are you doing here?" she hissed, storming toward me, trying to block the crowd's view. "Hosting the final farewell," I said, pulling a manila envelope from my bag. "As of yesterday, this property is sold. New owners take possession next month. Grab a drink fast. It might be your last on this patio." The crowd rippled. Confusion, laughter, awkward silence. Michael emerged from the side yard, face red, exhausted. "Mom, stop," he said quietly. "You don't have to do this here." I turned to him, clear and calm. "I do. Every time I spoke privately, you ignored me. Every time I spoke softly, you let her scream louder. Now I'm speaking her language." I handed him the envelope. "Sale agreement, eviction notice, your forged mortgage. I haven't pressed charges. Yet." Rosa appeared, phone raised, recording. "Smile, Emily," she said. "Wouldn't want your donors to miss this." Emily froze, aware of the phone's out, the sideways glances behind plates and sunglasses. "You vindictive old bitch," she hissed. "You think you've won? Everyone sees what a monster you are." I looked around. Guests were backing away, grabbing purses, whispering apologies, slipping to their cars. The champagne truck driver stood awkwardly by the gate. "Guess that's my cue?" I said to Rosa. "Ready?" "Always," she replied, linking arms. We walked past the people who'd laughed at me in that yard, past the house where I raised a boy who forgot who built his world, past the woman who thought she could break me without consequence. I turned once to see Emily crumpled in a patio chair, mascara streaking. Michael standing over her with the envelope, guilt all over him. I didn't smile or wave. I kept walking. This wasn't the end of a party, but the start of my piece. And I wasn't done. The eviction notice hit their doorstep Monday at 7:42 a.m., delivered by a sheriff's deputy with mirrored sunglasses and a no-nonsense tone Emily couldn't twist into victimhood. I wasn't there, but Rosa was, parked 2 houses down with a muffin and coffee. She said Emily screamed, like someone stole her kidney. Michael stood in sweatpants, took the envelope, nodded like a man facing the inevitable, and closed the door quietly. By Thursday, a single moving truck arrived. Not the 3 Emily bragged about needing for her designer furniture. By Saturday, they were gone. No farewell, no apology, not even a text from Michael. They moved to a rental in a cul-de-sac, half the size of my old property, per a church friend who lived nearby. She yelled at the movers. She whispered. He just sat on the curb and smoked. I said nothing. There was nothing to say. It was over. The house sat empty for 2 weeks during final inspections. I walked through it alone one last time, deliberately, like visiting a dying friend. The air smelled of lemon polish and faint regret. I touched the fireplace, the stair rail's worn groove where Michael slid down in pajamas, the hallway patch where Robert hung our wedding photo crooked, saying it looked more romantic. I sat in the empty living room, letting my breath echo. I wasn't crying or angry. I was clean. The sale closed 2 days later to a young black couple, Marcus and Olivia Grant, with a newborn and a rescue dog. He was an electrician. She worked remotely in graphic design. Their offer included a letter. We've dreamed of a house like this, not just the space, but the feeling. That sealed it. They wanted it for life, not status. I met them at the signing, shook their hands, and left the keys in a glass bowl by the door. "You'll love the kitchen in spring," I told Olivia. "It gets morning light to the sink." She smiled, squeezing my hand like we were passing a torch. That night, I drove to my new condo near the library, walking distance to the bakery and community garden. It had no fireplace or crown molding, but it had quiet, freedom, and it was mine. I unpacked slowly, lit a candle Robert bought at a Christmas market, and opened a bottle of wine I'd saved for no reason, until now. Rosa came by at 8 with takeout and soda, and we sat on my balcony, watching the city hum. "You did it," she said. "You didn't just win, you freed yourself." I nodded, staring at the sky. I didn't know how heavy it was until I let it go. I'd tried to carry that house, that family, like it was still what it used to be. It wasn't, and I wasn't. She raised her cup. "To never letting anyone treat us like the help again." I laughed, then froze, recalling Emily's insult. "You look like my housekeeper." Funny, the woman she compared me to, Rosa, was more family than either of them. In the end, it wasn't the title that defined me. It was the truth. Documented, notarized, signed, sealed, delivered. 2 weeks after the Grants moved in, I did something I hadn't in a decade. I rearranged my bookshelves, not out of need, but because I had the energy to care about order again. Halfway through alphabetizing fiction, Rosa showed up, grinning, with a bottle of mid-shelf red wine and a manila folder. "Got something to show you," she said, stepping in like she owned the place. And honestly, she kind of did. She set the wine down, opened the folder, and slid a glossy document across the counter. A small business license for Rosa's Home Harmony Cleaning and Organization Services. I blinked, then laughed. "You went legit?" She grinned wider. "Not just legit. 5 clients, 1 part-time trainee, 2 referrals waiting. Turns out people pay well for what I did for scraps." I touched the document, feeling its weight. "You said you'd never work for yourself." She nodded, serious. "I didn't until I saw you burn it all down and start over with a straight back. You showed me I'm not just background. I'm why places run." I poured 2 glasses of wine, handing her one. "You're why I didn't fall apart. You pulled me from the fog when I didn't know I was in it." She sipped, leaning in. "Emily called me twice. Left a voicemail acting like nothing happened, talking about future opportunities." My eyebrows shot up. "You're kidding." She shook her head. "She thought I'd feel bad, be desperate. She didn't get that once you know your worth, you don't go back to a rotted table." I laughed, full belly. Rosa raised her glass. "To self-employment." "To boundaries," I added. "To dignity," she said. "To silence broken," I replied. We clinked. A ceremony, an exorcism, a release. After she left, I sat on my balcony, thinking how strange it was that my closest ally wasn't blood, wasn't someone I raised, but someone I'd paid to mop my floors. Yet Rosa saw me when no one else did, never asking me to shrink or be grateful for being tolerated. She'd built a business, a spine, and watching her made me want more. Not revenge, but a life that was mine. I pulled out my notebook, once for grocery lists, and wrote, "Next." I listed, "Join the book club, visit the art museum downtown, sign up for watercolor classes." Robert used to tease I'd be dangerous if I stopped putting everyone else first. Now I was not cruel, but firm, deliberate. Rosa was right. Once you see your value, there's no going back. I wrote the letter on a Thursday afternoon, windows open, wind chimes tinkling like a slow exhale. Not to Michael or Emily. I'd said enough with silence and signatures. This was for my grandchildren, Sophie and Ethan, sharp-eyed kids who didn't ask for this mess, who hugged me last time without judgment. I waited until the noise settled, until my thoughts stopped spinning, wanting it to come from truth, not anger. I wrote about the house, not just walls, but memories. Chipped tile from Michael throwing a basketball indoors, the sticky kitchen drawer full of batteries, the garden where Robert grew stubborn tomatoes. I said it was okay to feel confused, hurt, or mad at me. I told them their parents' story about the house being stolen wasn't true, but I didn't ask them to pick sides, just to know love doesn't vanish when people fail to show it. I tucked in 2 photos. One of me and Robert on the porch in '89, one from Sophie's last birthday, her in a paper crown, making me pinky promise extra sprinkles next time. I said they could visit any time. No pressure, no loyalty test. Just an open door, cookies in the jar, and a grandma who still knew Go Fish. Sealing the envelope, I felt tender, peaceful, not triumphant, like closing a chapter without slamming it. That weekend, I donated Robert's books to the library and joined a community watercolor class. I wasn't good yet, but the colors bleeding without rules felt freeing. That night, I made spaghetti for one, lit a candle, and read a mystery novel in bed. Windows cracked, mint tea on the nightstand. No text.